Are you ready, Tiffany?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. We'll call the Hiawatha Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Monday, July 27th, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Daryl Cheney, Kevin Neef, Lisa Jepson. Here. Kenny Jones,
Here.
Terry Trimpey. Terry, are you still there? He was just on.
Terry, you're on mute.
Can you unmute Terry? Terry? Want me to wait or keep going?
Yeah, Terry, you can either go out and come back in. Sometimes it automatically mutes you for some reason, so if you just click out and try coming back in again, let's see what happens.
Yes. Want me to read it off for him?
Terry, I don't think you actually totally clicked out, because you still showed up, but you never left. So we just need you to totally click out and start over.
I'm gonna look up here, see if we're still connected. Can you hear us talking? Well, I'll finish and come back to him. Mark Ross,
Here.
Mark Powers.
Here. Item 2 is approval of the agenda. Terry, or Pat, do we have any additions?
We don't have any changes to the agenda.
Okay. So I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3 is the approval of the July 13th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the July 13th special meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 4, for everybody in the audience, we have 3 issues on the agenda tonight. If you have a concern or question or a comment, please stand up and give your name and address, and then state your issue. Item A is consider resolution for recommendation to City Council to approve the KNS investment request to rezone Lot 1 of Haddish's first edition to Lynn County, Iowa from A Ag to C3, amending the zoning district map as specified in Ordinance 165, Section 165.17.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just as a way of introducing, this is actually known by most people as 3506 County Home Road, so that we know which item that we're talking about here. This item is, has been recommended by staff to rezone as requested for a C3. And one of the owner's rep, or the owner, is here representing the people from that project. Matt?
Matt Schott, 628 Ashford Drive, Cedar Rapids, Northeast. One of three partners for K&S. Can you hear me?
Yep, it's on. Thank you.
Basically, just been working with staff and just went through the annexation process and moving forward with the C3 request. I think we've owned the property for about 3 years now and just slowly making progress. We removed the buildings here over the last year, and just a way to kind of bring our property to the forefront. Part of the working with staff there's an opportunity to get it listed on your website for existing inventory in the city. And I'm just basically here to answer any questions you might have.
I would like to comment on this rezoning. My name is Todd Miller. I live at 3523 Timber Ridge Trail, Cedar Rapids. Is it normal procedure to take land from agricultural to C3? That strikes me as not being a minor adjustment.
Mr. Chairman, the city of Hiawatha it's now annexed into the city of Hiawatha. Generally, property annexed in comes in as agricultural land use. In this particular case, it is in fact the case. For the city of Hiawatha, retaining it as ag use is not necessarily part of our comprehensive plan. In this particular case, the lot is designated in an area that would be for commercial use because it is on major highways, which is also not uncommon for us to have a comprehensive plan that addresses these issues.
Is it normal to put commercial property right next to residential homes? Some of the homes on Norman Drive, for example, there's one home there that's assessed at $444,000. If I owned that home, I would not want to have commercial property right next to it. It strikes me as very unusual to put commercial development right next to high-value homes like that.
Pat?
In this
Considered?
In this particular case, there is a border between the county and the edge of the city of Hiawatha. We do take into consideration what the county has done and where they look at for their comprehensive plan, as well as ours. In this particular case, this area in the county is designated as an urban service area. In particular, it's a municipal urban service area, which is known to the county to be ready for rezoning when it becomes part of a city. And since it's that kind of a zone, yes, the potential is there for commercial zones to be next to residential, and it can be done with the proper setbacks and the limits on the types of commercial uses that are allowed. In this particular case, it's a C3, and anything that gets fairly major for a commercial use in this zone would require a conditional use process, which enhances the screening and setback potential.
What type of business is planned to be put on this property?
Matt?
At this time, we have no offers or any insight.
Ma'am?
At this time, it's not known.
Correct.
Correct.
I'm Amanda Erickson, and I live on 3121 Norman Drive. So I'm the one that's right at the back. I'm the last house on the left on Norman Drive, and I was raised in that house and bought that house and grew up with the horses and the chickens and all that. Anyways, that doesn't matter, sentimental value, I know. But for my family to come in there and buy that home and spend the money that we spent to on that property, we have an acreage there, and that is right up against my backyard. And either way, it's upsetting that it won't be agriculture anymore, but like, what's holding it back from being residential at least, at the very least? Because when Hiawatha tried to annex Norman Drive in the past, they wanted us to cuff up several $1,000s that, especially in the time of COVID, people do not have right now to change the water from septic on that road to being city water. And so I'm wondering what's going to be happening to my investment and my family, and it's already going to trash my scenery, so that's fine. But really, I mean, just draining my property value by adding that commercial stuff back there. Is there any wiggle room? Is anybody thinking at all, can we make this residential?
I'm Kelly Byer, and I live at 3110 Norman Drive. So my land also is adjacent to this land that you're talking about rezoning. As you know, the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate a need for rezoning. And I've not seen any need demonstrated for rezoning. No need was put forth in the application, and it would seem that that would be the purpose of the application. For that reason, I ask that you not recommend this for rezoning, and there are several reasons you should not recommend it for rezoning. First, the application simply does not further the purpose and intent of the Hiawatha City Code ordinance with respect to zoning. The application does not protect residential areas from harmful encroachment by incompatible uses. The application would result in a C3 zoning immediately adjacent to long-established single-family residences. No buffer of any kind provided. The application does not foster a rational pattern and relationship among residential and other uses. Again, it results in a C3 zoning immediately adjacent to long-established single-family residences. Simply not rational to put those two butting up together. The application does not conserve the value of existing property and encourage the most appropriate use of land within the city. As Ms. Ellickson just said, it's going to be devastating to the property values of those existing and long-established family homes. The application provides no evidence of a community need for the uses allowed in the contemplated zoning district. Heard Mr. Schock say they got no plans for it. So what's the need for the rezoning? And shouldn't that need be set forth in the application? The application will have an adverse effect on the community's social, economic, and physical environment. Again, the surrounding areas primarily consist of long-established single-family housing neighborhoods. The application for the C3 rezoning destroys the social aspects of these neighborhoods, will devastate the values of the established and long-established family homes, and will completely change the physical environment. The physical environment will go from a rural residential setting to a commercial setting. There's been no physical, social, or economic change in the immediate or general area to support the zoning change. None whatsoever. The parcel can be reasonably used under its current zoning. It's been reasonably used under that current zoning for years and can continue to be. Further, there are numerous existing zoning districts within the community which can be utilized for the contemplated uses. As the application itself says, the 29.8 acres to the east are zone C4 and are totally undeveloped. So if commercial development's needed in the area, that's where to put it. Why bring it across to Edgewood Road? Why not use Edgewood Road as a buffer, as a dividing line? Contrary to the representations in the application is not compatible with the Hiawatha City Comprehensive Plan. The application does not coordinate with Lynn County land use in the unincorporated area. All the area of Lynn County around that is zoned either agricultural or residential. So clearly not compatible. Plus, the application is not consistent with the developmental goals and objectives of Lynn County. Lynn County historically has kept commercial development between I-380 and Center Point Road. Many of the people here today have fought for years and years to keep it that way and have been successful. And Lynn County always took the approach that, okay, in between Center Point Road and I-380 will be commercial, west of I-380 will be residential. So clearly this zoning is not consistent with what Lynn County's objectives are. In addition, the application does not comply with the requirements of Hiawatha Code 165.91. Specifically, the application misrepresents the compatibility of the requested rezoning with adjoining neighborhood. The only thing mentioned in the application is the one parcel immediately east that's zone C4. It does not say anything about the other three sides, which are agricultural or residential. It should be noted that the vicinity sketch map is not accurate. There ought to be accurate information provided with the application. It should also be noted that the Development Department report contains a major error and states that the land west of this land has been zoned to C4, which is absolutely inaccurate. Finally, the notification signs simply do not comply with the requirements of Hiawatha Code 165.90. Specifically, the signs do not state that the existing and proposed zoning designations, what they're going to be. Are there any questions that any of you have with respect to these reasons that I would request that you not recommend this zoning to the City Council?
Sir, have you provided that document you got in your hand there to the secretary or?
Yeah, I have 7 copies for the commission, and I'd happily give them to you and would ask that they be part of the record.
Okay, and then that would be forwarded on to City Council then.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, is it possible for other members here? Is there a way we can get a copy of that? If you would have or come up afterwards, give you our email address or something?
I'm Judy Davis, and I live at 3139 Norman Drive, We have lived out there for 46 years. We moved out there for the peace and quiet. If we want to live where there was commercial, we would have stayed in Cedar Rapids. We raised our daughters out there, and now our grandkids are going to be getting married, and they're going to be having children, and they're going to come to our house and want to play in the yard, and we don't want no commercial behind us. I just wanted to speak my piece, and I know everyone on Norman Drive does not want commercial behind us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is Felicia Richardson at 3533 County Home Road. I am right across the street from the property that was to be zoned to C3. We've lived out here for about 25 years. We really like the rural setting. I leave my curtains open most of the time because I love the darkness at night. I can see stars and everything. I just want to say that I really agree with the people that have talked before me that this is a rural setting. There's no commercial businesses out here so far. There is the part by I-380 that is zone C4, but I can see no reason for it to go further than that because all of the rest of the houses or all of the rest of the properties around here are residential. I just want to show my support for all of the other residents in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I did want to say one other thing. There's actually a couple of water easements. There's a water easement on my property, and there's a water easement on the property beside me. And I just wanted to make sure that you took that into consideration, that you figure out a plan for what needs to be done with that. Because there's definitely, when it rains a lot, there's definitely streams that go through our property. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barb Matthias, and I live at 3063 Brittany Circle. And I just wanted to point out to the council that County Home Road, which is now referred to as Edgewood Road, was rebuilt recently. Bike trails / walking trails were built on both sides of that road. So we now have people on a regular basis biking, walking their dogs, walking with their children, jogging, whatever it may be. I'm sorry, I said Loggerhead, thank you, to Edgewood. Exactly. Exactly. Sorry for the confusion. But again, we love that now because people have a safe place. People used to try and walk along that road and it was pretty dangerous. So now we have a wonderful pedestrian-friendly area that we're going to put commercial buildings by, and it doesn't make sense. Why was that road completely reconstructed if this was the intention?
My name is Mike Crillia. I live at 3569 Timber Ridge Trail. And I just want to echo the young lady's sentiments. After all the trouble and cost that has been made into making that a pedestrian-friendly way where people can walk their dogs, ride a bike, the city of Hiawatha itself even lowered that to a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. It was 45. That is not a major thoroughfare. County Home Road may be, and I-380 may be, but Edgewood Road is not. It is not designated to be commercial. It is a residential area. Everything along that, all the way down to where it turns into Miller Road, is residential. So if you're looking at that to be a C3 restricted, and I've looked at the matrix of the C3 restricted, there's not a lot restricted on that. And if you're looking to put something commercial there, that's going to increase traffic flow, and that's going to be a major problem for the corner of County Home Road and Edgewood Road. And as the previous lady on the Zoom invitation or the Zoom meeting was doing, we moved out there 20 years ago to be away from the city lights, to be out where it was quiet, and there wasn't lots of lights. It seems like about every 4 or 5 years there gets brighter and brighter coming from the south towards us. It's one car dealership, then it's another car dealership, then it's another car dealership, and we think there's, it can stop where it is right now, that area does not have a demand for any commercial. There's not anybody out in that area saying, gee, we really need more commercial here. We're happy to go into Hiawatha for it, and we're happy to go into Cedar Rapids for it. As she said, if we wanted to be closer to the city, we would have stayed in the city. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Armstrong. I'm at 3520 Timber Ridge Trail. Patrick, you mentioned that if there were cases where you might look at putting a heavy industrial or a different type of facility or center there or whatever it may be, that would be automatically permitted to be conditional. I don't see anything on the current zoning matrix, if you want to call it that, that says that determines what's going to be conditional. Could you expand on what we can expect to be conditional?
If you look at the zoning matrix, there are blank squares for C3, there are permitted uses, and there are conditional uses. Anything that's designated with a C would be a conditional use required.
Okay, I've read that.
Yep.
But there's a very large expanse of usages there.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And we, in the comprehensive plan for the city of Hiawatha and looking toward the future, considering the corridor growth and what Hiawatha has in mind, this neighborhood commercial zone or node fits in very nicely with our comprehensive plan 2036.
My name is Bill Smeltzer, and I actually don't live in the neighborhoods you guys do. I live on 730 Canes Drive, right by Dave Wright dealership. And I just kind of want to let you guys know that no matter what you guys say or do, nothing is going to happen. The city's going to do whatever they want to do, and you have no control over it. Because when I bought my house in 2010, I had a horseshoe neighborhood that was just like 12 houses, and since then the city and Dave Wright has taken over my neighborhood, and now I'm down to 5 houses in my neighborhood, and I can't sell to try to get it out. So basically it's a moot point for you guys to be even here, honestly. It's a terrible situation for everybody. They will develop behind your houses, in front of your houses, just for money. That's the way government is. And that guy over there, with the nice smile on his face, he's always been a smug guy throughout this whole situation. So you can't trust a word that guy says. Look at it, he's still smiling. There it is. Hi. So, I just want you guys to know, since 2010, when I bought my house, I bought my property. I have 3/4 an acre property. And it was a nice tree neighborhood. Couldn't hear the interstate. Couldn't see Casey's from my house. Could enjoy a fire. I could enjoy a grill out with friends. Can't do that anymore. And when I bought that house in 2010, my wife and I, we had no kids. And now we have 2 kids, ages 7 and 4, I'm sorry. And we're scared to death to let our kids outside because guess what? We have Dave Wright's cars going 25 to 35 miles per hour down our street, which is now a cul-de-sac that has an exit and entrance into Dave Wright's parking lot. I didn't come here for myself for this tonight. I wanted you guys to understand what we've went through with Dave Wright's dealership coming to our property. So basically right now I'm surrounded, right across the street from me is a parking lot, right next doors to me a parking lot, and that's it. There used to be a park right next door to me, but now guess what? The greedy people of the city and Dave Wright and developers have taken everything away from us that we have tried to do and tried to build for. Smile again, bud. So I just want you guys to know that no matter what this city says, no matter what they do, it's not going to be in your best interest. So here you go.
Hi, Amanda Alexson again, 3121 Norman Drive. So having been born out there, raised out there, and then buying my parents' home, I understand that that property is gold. I get it. I know that that will make you guys lots of money, and it would fit in any city's broken plan. It would. I'm not going to argue that. But I really, 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 really wish that somewhere inside yourself that you can find at least the heart to turn it into something residential. And I'm not even saying keep it agricultural. Make it residential. Put in your little roundabouts and all the things that you've done in Hiawatha, but please don't make my backyard and my community that I have invested in dangerous, full of traffic, and it just wipes out any sentimental value of it ruins all of our values. And so it's just, you can do what you want, you're gonna do what you want, but what I'm asking for is for you to have some spot inside your soul where you can respect someone who's doing that to you. Okay? So, that's all I really have to say. Just please don't do that. Like, at least consider residential. If you're not going to consider agricultural, consider residential. Because it would be a nice residential area too. Would it make you the money and would you have like Wolf Eye Clinic there? No. But just imagine if you lived there.
Other comments? Matt, you?
Thanks again. I just would point out once again that right across the street from this property is C4. That's in Hiawatha.
Can you speak up, Matt?
I'm sorry, thank you. Once again, the property across the street is C4 that we're talking about. So we're right across from the C4 zoning, and that property is in Hiawatha. There are setback. I guess I would just ask what the general public has in mind with residential, because there's different types of residential too. I don't think it's appealing to have acreages on Edgewood Road right next to a C4. So we went with the approach that basically that town village, that we just didn't want to be at a disadvantage with C4, the other property in Hiawatha. And we're just trying to move forward and get some interest. And part of it is to reduce friction, that proactively trying to rezone on our own. And like I said, just not at a disadvantage right across the street from us with other property here in town.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, any further questions?
I have another question. Kelly Byer, 3110 Norman Drive, for Mr. Schock. Taking your rationale, then there's no reason to ever stop zoning commercial. Because if across the street is C4, then why shouldn't you be able to go to C3? I think some of us with a little history here know about the property that was zoned to C4. And that's a property that Lynn County would not zone commercial, but once it was annexed into Hiawatha, then it was zoned C4. It's a really good-looking cornfield right now, but it's zoned C4. And it'd make a lot more sense to stop there, and that Edgewood Road be the determining factor, if you will, as far as some kind of buffer to the rest of us with residential.
With that in mind, sir, could I ask you, and maybe this is not related or related, but as you, as a group, would residential be considered? Would you consider residential in that spot?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as a group, have you come to that agreement? If it came down to that? I mean, no. I mean, I just had a question though.
How come these people have owned this property for 3 years and haven't done nothing on it? You can't tell me that they don't have plans to put gas station, business places. I mean, how come all of a sudden after 3 years they decide to do something?
I can't speak to that,
I
ma'am.
don't understand that.
I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. But I was just curious about the residential because some of you folks brought that up.
I think you probably take raise a vote by hand just to get an interest of who would rather have residential than C3. I mean, I think would you guys want to raise your hands to see, just out of curiosity, who would rather that be residential than C3? Well, it kind of tells us, I think, we understand that, you're not going to have the chickens and goats and horses there anymore, but single-family dwellings is much preferred over C3 development.
Understand that. Also, please understand that it's the right of the property owner to have the property, if it fits, zoned to his uses. So.
Maybe he should have gotten that rezoned before he bought it.
If we've shown the need, we've not heard any reason, any need to rezone that property to C3. Nothing in the application, nothing we've heard today.
It just,
Shouldn't we have been informed when that was changed from agriculture to commercial? The property that's adjoining it? We were told.
You know, the one that's a cornfield?
No.
the one further east
The one we're talking about today.
or the one further east? The one further east was rezoned 5 years ago, I believe.
We would have went through the same process that we're
Yeah.
going through right now for that parcel as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think those are all the public comments, and I'm not seeing anything else. that-
How do we get into this habit of, I think you said it was provisional or proactive zoning? I've purchased property myself throughout the years, and I've gone through a zoning process. I had purchased the property, and I had a buyer with a specific need or specific desire to put a facility on that property. After I got that put together, then I went to Cedar Rapids zoning and got the zoning changed to fit that particular need.
So I can let the attorney speak to that, but it is a zoning and planning question.
Yeah, and it is a zoning and planning question. If I understand your question, though, are you saying that in occasions where you've purchased property, you've gone to council first, so it was a contingency in the purchase agreement that it gets zoned to what you wanted the use to be before you purchased it, as opposed to this where they've already purchased the property and then later they come to the city to rezone?
I purchased the property, I owned it, and then I had a person that was interested in that property, and I went ahead and made that application.
Yeah, I've seen it done both ways. Yeah, but I think it is a question maybe more for Pat as opposed to a legal question.
Yeah, we actually see it both ways. Sometimes we see the person that owns the property make the application, and sometimes it's part of a purchase agreement that goes forward. And sometimes it's an applicant that understands that they want to prepare their property and not have to go through a rezoning process in the middle of a purchasing process. And so we see it both ways. From a planning perspective, we actually prefer this part of it because we don't get wrapped up in the specifics about what might be on the site and what might not be on the site. Rather, we can talk the values in general terms. In this particular case, we're looking at an area that was designated in our comprehensive plan as a neighborhood commercial business area. A place that would be could be a center of activity for the residents that are around there. We look at those areas basically because the city is growing, and of course the corridor is a very fast-growing area. And in this particular area along 380 with the interchange at County Home Road, we know that there's going to be substantial traffic there, whether it's residential or commercial. It's highly unlikely that given the bent or the new planning requirements or goals that cities have that incorporate sustainability and green construction, that you will ever see commercial totally separated from residential, because it is way more convenient to be able to walk or ride bike to some of the stores and some of the amenities than it is to always have to get in your car to go down to the central business area. So a lot of cities are taking these little nodes into perspective. And fortunately, this is a very recent comprehensive plan, and it does indeed bring forward that concept. And this is one of those locations.
Well, my understanding is once it's zoned C3, the best intentions could go out the door once it's, I think I'll put a nice little, maybe like part of the city, a little shopping center there. We pass it, and it's like, I get more money for a car lot.
You are correct. Anything that works for a C3 would be in there. However, going back to the original question, even if you change it to a C3 based on a particular project, you are not assured of that project, because in a year or even less, it can certainly change to any other C3.
So what is downgrading from a C3?
In terms of, right, I wouldn't go downgrade or upgrade. There are differences in each of the zones. In this particular area, we look at the C4 to the east, then we go to a C3. There might eventually be an incorporation of multifamily dwelling before we even get to the single-family dwelling. And there might even be high-density residential, not multifamily and single buildings, such as row housing and those types of issues. So there are quite a variety of things that it can still be.
What would be, rather than not using the upgrade or downgrade, what would be less impactful?
Presently, being an agricultural zone and being recognized by the county as a transition zone, we're actually moving in the exact direction that I think was intended.
This person who owns this property has the right to yes, he does have his right, but please remember there are people who have owned it for less than 3 years and have history there, and they moved there happily, driving to town. I don't mind driving to town. I don't think anybody ever hears from driving to town. That's what we chose when we moved out there. And Edgewood, just really beautiful interchange there, so like just stop it at the Edgewood and leave it alone. And I get it, but it's just, it's kind of a problem.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't intending to say that your neighborhood is inappropriate because you drive. Don't get me that. What I'm saying is there is another vision, and part of it is that this would be a business node.
But what about the vision of the people who live there? You know what I mean? I mean, they don't live there.
Well,
So what
in,
would
Come out there and watch the kids run up and down the street.
yeah.
I mean, I think I understand how like our little business project matters way more than any of this. And, it's because I'm not a business person, but there's just no soul in that, and that's just not how that area is. So, sorry, I'm gonna passionate.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Okay, so should we
The
close, let's
first
close
one-
the public hearing and then?
Yep.
Yeah, it
Yes.
would be time to go to the board questions.
Yep. Close the public hearing and then.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll close the public hearing, so,
Okay. Is it okay now, Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Okay. So the first question I had, Mr. Chairman, was clarification on what our options are tonight. First of all, we can consider the resolution to recommend or deny, or approve, I guess. Second one is, our vote, does the city council have the final say on this, or is it dependent on what we vote?
No.
I want to have some clarification, so we're all clear on that.
City council is the final say.
So no matter if we approve or disapprove, we can just recommend. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Your motion before you is a recommendation to City Council for approval.
And then that has to go on, then they approve, is there 3 different, do they vote on it 3 times, or is it?
Yes.
Yes, it is an ordinance, so yes, there could be as many as 3 readings.
Okay.
That's correct.
Very good. The second question I had was, and I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't catch your name, but were you suggesting or trying to describe the placards that are out in the field that said that wasn't clear? Is that what you're trying to get to, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what was not clear was it didn't have the current zoning and the zoning that it was moved to, which is, as I see, the ordinance is required to be on the sign.
Okay. So and Patrick, this is directed towards you. Are those signs posted up, and then do the folks here that are in the audience tonight, do they also get some kind of correspondence in the mail or how does that work?
They generally get correspondence in the mail
Okay.
when they're in the city of Hiawatha.
So I'm confused again. So the folks in Lynn County did not get information, or how did that work?
I don't believe,
The city of Hiawatha, so the ordinance doesn't require notice to be given to us.
correct.
Okay. So I'm sorry, but how did you find out about this then?
Very visible sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the green sign that was against the green grass.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I had, Mr. Chairman.
Other board members, do we have questions? Go ahead, Lisa.
I have a very narrow, this is Lisa, I have a very narrow procedural question, and that is, I'm not familiar with the history of applications and whether they are typically some of my fellow board members or Patrick speak to the consistent, what is the consistent request? Thank you.
Sure. I can speak to that, Lisa. Generally speaking, we receive rezoning requests basically because the owner has either found some use for it that he wants to use it for that is not presently zoned for, or it's initiated by the City Council or the Planning and Zoning Commission when they have realized that there is a parcel of property that is zoned incorrectly and not moving forward in our comprehensive plan. And then the third reason for rezoning, which happens quite often, is in annexed property. It comes into the city as agricultural property, and not infrequently, part of that annexation is a desire to move it into a different kind of a zone, in this particular case, a commercial zone. The criteria that the city uses currently is our comprehensive plan. Not only is it our future land use plan, but also our comprehensive plan in terms of what kind of uses we need or look forward to in the future, whether it be additional industrial land, commercial land, or residential uses. And we try to keep a balance of that in mind when we receive the rezoning requests. That's a long answer. I hope it covered most of it.
Oh, I'm a college professor. That was a short answer, so thank you, yes.
Leave it to Lisa.
Any other questions by the board members? Terry, you out there?
Gary, did you try calling in? Did you try calling the number? I can give that to you. So it would be 1402.
If you have a question or comment, sir?
Yes, I would just say to all those present, to not be misled by the few numbers of people we have here. I would bet the house I live in right now, have it not been for COVID-19, you would not have had enough chairs. Or enough room in this area.
Thank you.
Gary, you just need to turn the volume down on your computer. Gary, it looks like you're in.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So now just turn down the volume on your computer. Turn the computer volume way down. There you go. Now you should be able to talk on your phone.
Board members, any other questions?
Are you here, Terry?
Terry?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have any further questions, Terry?
No, I have a lot of questions, but I'm not sure this is the place that I want to bring them up. There, I think I've got that turned down now. All right.
You're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my thoughts are, I would like to see this go forward, the request for rezoning. I know there's a lot of people that spoke against it, but, I mean, you have to expect when you live in this close of proximity to an interstate highway that you're not going to just have residential right up to the highway.
Okay.
We've closed it.
Ma'am, this is time for board discussion.
Pardon me?
I just said this was time for the board to discuss the issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other board questions? Do we have a motion from the board?
Unless we want to defer this and speak about it again at a later date, I will make a motion to go forward with the request for the rezoning. And we'll make that recommendation to the city council.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the recommendation. Do we have a second?
Could I just, a point of clarification, a second does not mean you have to vote for the motion. It does get it on the floor so it can be voted upon.
Very true, very true. That, in light of trying to move the meeting forward, I would second the motion. So we have a motion and a second.
Terry Trimpe,
Aye.
Kenny Jones,
Nay.
Mark Ross,
Nay.
Mark Powers,
Aye. Lisa?
Lisa Jepson, sorry.
Aye.
Sorry, Lisa.
Aye. No worries.
So we have 3-2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. To the people in the audience, it will be in front of the city council. I encourage you to attend and voice your concerns there.
Will we get notification when that is?
August 5th.
August
5th, Wednesday. Yep, Wednesday, August 5th, I believe,
At 5:30.
at 5:30.
You know that a lot of people are work by then, right? And aren't home.
– 5:30. Yes.
Okay, item B. I'm sorry?
Will we be able to get into City Hall, or is it going to be another call like this?
The meeting format will be exactly the same way as it is now. There is room for some to attend, and it will be broadcast live for virtual attendance.
Okay, thank you.
Item B, consider resolution to recommend to City Council to approve the next level 22 request to rezone Auditor's Plat 372, lots 16, 17, and 23 in Lynn County, Iowa, from R1 to C3, and amending the zoning district map as specified in Ordinance 165, Section 165-17.
Mr. Chairman, we do have someone here to speak to this rezoning as well. It's a representative of the owner, Nick Hatz.
Okay?
So if you have any questions, or Nick, would you like to make some comments? Oh, I could introduce the item in a little more detail. I put on the screen the lots affected by this rezoning. For those of you that aren't in the auditorium, it's 3 parcels attached to Dave Wright's present property, currently zoned R1 and moving to C3. The properties have been developed as part of Dave Wright's property. One of them used to be a park on Kynes Drive. The other 2 are presently detention basins along Boyson Road. The motion or the request is to be able to use his car dealership license on all of the parcels and not just a portion of them, and so he's seeking a rezoning for these parcels from residential to C3.
I had one question, Patrick, when this came up. Didn't we, help me out with this, didn't we vote on this maybe a year ago or something?
Well, I did some research, and I'm glad you asked. We have actually, this has been a 3-part process starting back in 2014 for the rezoning of this area in conjunction with our comprehensive plan. And yes, it has been steadily moving towards a commercial rezoning in this area, starting in 2014 when many of the residential lots that were being rehabilitated were zoned to commercial. And the CPR zone area was also changed to C3. And then the owner expanded to 725 and 735 Kynes Drive in 2018, adding space for his dealership. And now here in 2020, he's adding more parcels, which he's already purchased and developed.
Okay, now, part of this, and most of this is the parking lot. Is what he's really trying to rezone. And some of that was supposed to be used for the dog, overflow for the dog parking. Is that true?
In this particular, if I might, Mr. Chairman, and Nick can probably talk about it a little bit, yes, there is a public use mandate that goes along with the property and also with the detention basin properties, which is separate from this rezoning. That will stay just the way it is. You're absolutely correct.
Full all the time, so nobody can park in there.
Well, I'm not the enforcer for that particular portion of the program.
But I think that we should have a restriction on that if that's what it's going to be. A certain percent of that should be.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, that presently is in place, and it is a requirement in place right now, and it is the county's responsibility to take care of that, and whether we change it to C3 or not has no bearing on that at all.
Now, the county actually owns this ground, right?
No, the county does not own the ground.
Okay.
And we're speaking particular, Patrick, the hatched area on this
Yes.
screenshot? Okay.
What percentage is supposed to be for parking for the dog?
I'm not privy to the agreement between the owner and the county, but so I couldn't tell you the answer to that.
Why is the county involved in that?
What's that?
If it's in Hiawatha.
It is in Hiawatha, but the agreement is between the county and the owner.
There was a land swap associated with these parcels. Dave Wright gave them the land for the dog park, I believe, in transfer for these parcels, because it was the top 3 north parcels, and then the parcel with the parking lot on it on the south side.
Yeah, but every time I went over there, that parking lot's plumb full, except for now because you don't have there very many cars in the lot. And that's what I'm saying is that even though we're doing this, there's got to be something in there to protect, so people that go to this new dog park can park their cars if they absolutely need to. You go over there on a weekend, and that parking lot's plumb full.
Kenny,
as far as the bike trail and stuff is concerned.
Sure.
And so if we have somebody come over there for the dog park, where are they going to park at? They're going to park in the people's streets, and then they're going to be hollering because they're in the parking in the street because they've got this parking lot curb full.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, Kenny, but I will say that this is not the vehicle for that mandate. This isn't the place for that mandate. I hear what you're saying, and you could be absolutely correct.
A question I've got, we were provided 3 screenshots that showed landscaping and screening.
Yes.
And while they're very adequate as far as their landscaping and screening, I happened to visit the car wash establishment today, which was part of a previous rezoning. And there's like 4 trees that are deader than dead. Is there any maintenance to that landscaping and screening requirement, or?
Yes, he is required to maintain the screening. Go ahead, Nick.
If he needs to maintain it, he just needs to be made aware of that. I can't commit him to any action on that. But
I understand.
If he's outside of the ordinance, then he needs to be made aware of that and remedy it.
Understand.
That we can do.
Yeah.
These weren't like trees on the south side between his own properties, though, was it?
Yeah, these were trees between the parking lot and the car wash, yes.
Not necessarily maybe it's not really relevant.
Yeah, it may not be relevant to the screening.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
I have a concern that
Sure.
while we're showing screenshots of adequate screening, there needs to be a maintenance program that maintains those.
And the screenshots are related to the screening for the parcels that are part of the rezoning with.
Yes, that's true.
So.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to comment?
And I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry. This is Matt Callahan on the phone. I'm actually an attorney that represents Bill Schmelzer, who was there earlier and made some comments, as well as his wife, Liz, and then two other neighbors at 717 Drive, Steve and Chris Bach. And I drafted a letter, sent it over in opposition to this zoning. I think that letter lays out more or less, our objections here to this. And more specifically, I just want to direct your attention to, one of those screenshots showing the plot. And when this is rezoned, there's going to be a clear zoning island here that is going to be a big issue. And there's also been a lot of issues already here. To be perfectly candid with you, this pending lawsuit about you. There are several issues that have come up, including the usage of these properties as C3 already. Prior to this rezoning, they've been used in this manner for over a year now, without the city stepping in. So, I kind of laid out the laundry list of issues there. I know it's getting late. I don't want to repeat myself, but I did want to draw some attention to that and to let you know that there are people in this neighborhood that do still care about this property and have seen a lot of negative consequences from this development, including, much of what the other folks were saying today about their properties, devaluation of houses, things like that. And actually, the other big issue here is, I believe it's lot 16 and 17 that we're talking about, kind of to the north there, that have some water detention issues with them. And my understanding is those have not been fixed, and there are still several water issues that are happening here. So I'll rest with that and direct you back to my letter, but I did want to just make my voice heard.
Okay, did you send that letter so
Yeah.
it could be made part of the record?
I have it.
Okay.
Yes, and she would actually read it into the minutes here.
Yeah,
Should.
I can read it. Are you ready for that now, Chairman?
Sure.
Okay, we received a letter to be submitted on record. Dear Ms. Graber, as you are likely aware, my law firm represents William and Elizabeth Schmetzler and Christine and Stephen Backen with respects to an ongoing lawsuit filed in Lynn County brought to my clients against several parties, including the city of Hiawatha. My clients and I were made aware of the recent zoning request by Next Level 22 Properties, LLC, Dave Wright, to formally change the zoning classification of Auditor's Plat 372, lots 16, 17, and 23. My clients had asked me to write a letter objecting the proposed rezoning. Initially, the rezoning does not, as Dave Wright and Patrick Parsley suggest, match the pre-existing neighborhood. Indeed, the Canes Drive neighborhood was a peaceful and quiet residential neighborhood until Dave Wright began to slowly and inconspicuously buy up residential properties, hoping the city would rubber stamp his plan to convert the neighborhood into a commercial one. Unfortunately, the city has done just that. And along with Lynn County, the problem has been exacerbated even further. The site plan and zoning exhibit contained within the meeting packet make this clear. To rezone lots 16, 17, and 23 as proposed would simply serve to create an even more extreme zoning island. As it stands, there are only 5 houses left in this neighborhood. Dave Wright has already taken over half the other plots. More egregiously, Dave Wright has been operating lot 23 as a commercial space despite the lot's zoning restrictions. In fact, despite the claim that this will help expand a new car dealership, lot 23 has been utilized as a used car retaining lot and used car dealership. Indeed, if the city allows this rezoning, the Smelters, along with one other residential property, will be surrounded on all sides by commercial development. When the Smelters purchased their home in 2010, the Dave Wright dealership did not exist. They have always considered their neighborhood as a quiet residential one. Dave Wright has slowly been taking over the entire neighborhood, and if this rezoning is approved, it will strip the neighborhood of any remaining residential characteristics. Additionally, while Dave Wright and Mr. Parsley suggest proper screening and lighting have been installed, this is not the case. Light pollution and sound pollution are omnipresent. Perhaps more egregiously, Dave Wright has placed several security cameras in locations that face directly into the Smelter's home. As the present proposal makes clear, Dave did so on property that is not nor ever has been zoned as commercial. It is therefore clear Dave Wright has not and will not follow the requirements that are attached to this rezoning. In addition, the Smelters have experienced several drainage-related problems stemming from Dave Wright's commercial development and impervious pavement. The Smelters property is frequently subject to pooling and becomes unusable. Accordingly, it is clear Dave Wright has been unable or unwilling to install proper detention ponds or basins to prevent damage to the rest of the neighborhood. Finally, the Smelters see this as an attempt by Dave Wright to ensure their property has no value to anybody but Dave Wright, and to ensure Dave Wright is able to purchase the property for pennies on the dollar. In short, no one will be interested in a lot that is surrounded on three sides by a car dealership, and the city should not force someone to live inside a car dealership. Finally, the Smelters fear for the safety of their young children. By rezoning Lot 23, the street in front of the Smelters home will effectively be a thoroughfare for the dealership, connecting the used car lot to the remaining lot. The street is likely to be used for customer test drives, which frequently include acceleration and speed tests, not to mention involve drivers driving unfamiliar vehicles. For all these reasons and more, the Smelters request the city deny Dave Wright's zoning request. The Backens have been living in the neighborhood since 2006. Like the Smelters, they always considered the neighborhood as a residential one. Only recently did Dave Wright surreptitiously begin buying up several of the residential homes in an effort to claim the neighborhood's characteristic is now that of a commercial neighborhood. Indeed, Dave Wright has already purchased several homes in an effort to take over the entire neighborhood. Although they will not be surrounded by dealerships on all sides like the Smelters, the Backens would be sandwiched between the Wright Wash, also owned by Dave Wright, to the southwest, and a used car lot which has been illegally operated at Lot 23 to the northeast. The Backens fear granting Dave Wright's request will ensure the neighborhood loses all residential characteristics. The Backens also have several drainage-related issues, and their yards are subject to pooling following even minimal precipitation due to several of Dave Wright's impervious paved surfaces. The Backens fear this rezoning will only exacerbate their issue, as it is clear Dave Wright has done little to nothing to resolve water runoff issues to date. This rezoning would require Dave Wright to be responsible for stormwater detention, a task Dave Wright has shown it is not capable of completing. Additionally, the Backens have been subject to unceasing light and sound pollution, which is likely to worsen if the city rezones the lots at issue. It will simply provide Dave Wright an even greater ability to engage in the types of issues the Backens have dealt with for years. The Backens request the city deny Dave Wright's requested rezoning. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely, Matthew Callanan.
Thank you.
I guess back to my question, Pat, was that on this, who is supposed to be, I mean, how do we know what percentage is supposed to be for the dog park and for his use?
I'll let the city attorney talk.
There is no stated percentage in the conveyance documents from the county to Dave Wright as it relates to lot 23.
Yep.
Or 23, which is the old park. It just says shared use between, or public purpose.
Yeah, but you can't share if it's full all the time.
Well, I'm not sure that it's full all the time. It may be, I don't know, I'm not there.
It's not full right now for the simple reason is because neither one of the car lots has got any cars. I mean, you know what I mean? But when he's in full force, it is full.
And again,
I've been by there.
And again, I think Pat's correct that that would be a county issue to enforce whether or not there's proper shared parking between the parking lot there for the trailhead as well as lot 23.
Okay, but now is that lot in Hiawatha or Lynn County?
Hiawatha.
Is it zoned in Hiawatha?
Yes.
Then we should have some responsibility to how much we can put that in there.
If I might, you switched, so now we're not talking about the public. We're just talking about the rezoning.
Okay.
That's what your question is.
Yes.
And the rezoning is a requirement based on what he was found to be using the parking lot for. And so we did send him a letter to cease using it for his business unless he got a rezone for that use. He's aware of that, and so he made an application to rezone. It's still apart from the shared requirement between he and the county because we're not a party to that anymore. And in the documents, we can't do for the county any more than they could do it for us. So we do have power over the rezoning. You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
So Patrick, would it be possible for you to point out lot 23 for me? So I'm clear about that.
Lot 23.
Lot 23, okay. It's a parking lot right now is what it is. It used to be our park, okay?
Used to be neighborhood park.
Neighborhood park, okay?
And they took the structure down,
Yes,
correct?
that's all down and it's a all cemented park, or parking lot right now, okay? And what my understanding is that part of this parking lot was going to be shared with the new dog park that we put in.
And I'm confused, and I know it doesn't have any.
But this.
Go ahead.
But what we're saying is right now is we don't have any control over that part. We're just saying that if we can make it, we're gonna rezone it to, what was that?
C3. What's your question, Mark?
Well, my question is and help me out with this, is, again, how is the county engaged with this? Is the dog park, is that part of the county now?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's.
I mean, I don't want to get. I mean, I
Right.
get
No, I think
all the
that's.
time telling me I'm sidetracking the show.
No,
here.
I think it's a valid. I think it's a valid review, and Nick brought it up. There was a land swap as part of this whole thing, and maybe Mark Parmenter, as the city's representative, could clarify a little bit of how that happened.
Well, originally, lots 16 and 17, which they are as they are now, they're retention.
Yes.
Right.
Lots 16, 17, and 23 were conveyed by the county to Hiawatha years and years ago. I don't remember the specific date. But in the deed, there was a requirement that 16, 17, and 23 be used for a public purpose. Clearly, 16 and 17 as a retention pond would be a public purpose. Clearly, a park is a public purpose. So Dave Wright had acquired this property, also known now as the dog park that's going to be located. His proposal was to do a land swap. Well, the city couldn't swap any land with him because there's a requirement in the deed when it went from the county to the city that it must remain a public purpose. So it's not our land to convey to anybody. So what the city did was conveyed its interest by quitclaim UUIT, back to the county, as well as lots 16 and 17. So now all of that interest went back to the county. Then Dave Wright conveyed his interest where the dog park is now to the county. That's the land swap. And then what the county did was it conveyed the dog park to the city, just as it had done with 16, 17, and 23, but it still has that requirement that it be for a public purpose. So as long as the city continues to use it as a dog park or another public purpose, the city continues to control it. So that's how this transaction occurred. So now the county has conveyed lots 16, 17, and 23 to level 22.
Correct.
And there's a requirement in the deed and the agreement that it be shared parking, lot 23, that there be shared parking for overflow from the trailhead park, which could also be partly due to the dog park.
Thank you very much.
And that may not be particularly clear, but it's not as clear as I can probably make it. I can try to answer questions that people have as it relates to the conveyances.
My one question would be, as far as park area, we actually have more park square footage now than we had before. Is that accurate? Yeah. Right.
Also on that lot is a separate new mile retention cell, stormwater management area, so it's not all impervious area. And the drainage report and all the site design was fully approved by city engineering, and it counts and adheres to all the ordinances. So all that additional runoff was accounted for.
Yep.
So, and that's also a public benefit.
Well, it also, Pat, you
Thank you,
can
Nick.
maybe speak to this too, but the retention pond properties 16 and 17 must remain a retention pond. Dave Wright is now required to maintain it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The city no longer maintains lots 16 and 17. And so that burden has now been shifted to level 22 and not the city. So he can't just come in and fill it in and put a parking lot there.
I understand that.
He has to maintain that retention, or that water, what do we call it, Pat, the water runoff.
Yeah. Stormwater runoff. Stormwater management.
So Kenny, what you're speaking to is just 23 is where the parking is concern is, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there, and again, I totally understand all about the kind of the agreement between Lynn County and Mr. Wright and Hiawatha that, and I understand what you're saying about the suggestion that maybe there should be signs put up, and that's not part of this whole discussion this evening. I understand your concern.
It's a complete mud ball, basically.
I understand.
From county to the city, or from the city to the county, back to the city. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's a mud ball.
It's good that we have some transparency, Ken. It's good, because otherwise I read this 10 times and I couldn't dissect it. So I appreciate that.
Yep. Okay.
Any other board questions? In order to move the meeting along, I would make a motion to approve the resolution for recommendation to the City Council to approve the rezoning request for next level 22 on lots 16, 17, and 23.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Kenny Jones,
Nay.
Lisa Jepson,
Aye.
Mark Powers,
Aye.
Terry Trimpe,
Nay.
Mark Ross,
Aye.
that's all four. The other two are gone.
So motion carried.
Yes. Yep, 3.
Okay. Item C, consider resolution for recommendation to City Council to vacate the north 30 feet of Brandon Avenue, Hiawatha, Iowa right-of-way as requested by City Council on July 15th, 2020.
Have you got a good map of that?
Yes, I do.
I hope so, because I can't find it.
If I might clarify, if you drive on Brandon Avenue to the very north end, it dead ends. And what has happened during the platting process, the north 30 feet was actually platted as right-of-way as a separate plat from the original plat. In Reynolds' first plat, this 30 feet was set aside for right-of-way. If you look closely at this map, and I'm not sure you can see it, but there's actually sewer and water utilities inside of it as well. So if you read the memo that I put forward, it does mention that if we do make a recommendation to eliminate or vacate this as public right-of-way, there are a couple of things that we would want to do in place of that. And the first is we would need a place developed for turning vehicles around, which means we would have to mandate that whoever might be interested in purchasing that right-of-way and closing it off from the rest of the city is in terms of public, that they would create a turnaround for snow removal vehicles and emergency vehicles. The second aspect of it is we would have to get an easement recorded giving us access to the sewer and water lines that are already existing on the property. That said, the city has no other interest in that property. And so with some contingencies, it is very possible that we would be or could be willing to vacate the property. Is the proponent or the requester of the vacation here? Rodney did a request. If I might give you a little background, he owns the 2 properties adjacent to this vacated property. In light of that, he would probably be the only one interested in purchasing it. Not that the city would sell it for more than $1, but he would have an opportunity to make some changes to his property, which he can explain.
Great, thank you. So I've owned that property for going on 6 years now, and
would you state your name first, Rod? Thank you.
Beautiful. And the name of the property is called Storehouse Storage. 840 Brandon Avenue. I've owned the property almost 6 years now. And over the course of that time, I've made many improvements to the complex as far as new doors and seals and landscaping and asphalt and so on and so forth. But within the last, I would say, 9 to 12 months, I've seen an uptick in vandalism of my tenants' units. And it's typically happening on the back side where it's somewhat hidden. But nonetheless, I have spurts of vandalism, and I am trying to curtail that by putting up a perimeter fence around the entire property, and also a electronic gate to let my tenants in with a code. There is already gated access on the, it would be the east or west side, so I would be putting a fence up on the south side property, and then also on the east side of the property with the gate up on the property that the city currently owns to access there. So I guess that's all I can say to it. Does that sound about right?
Sounds okay to me. Basically, it's to assist you in creating a security fence around your property.
That is correct, yes.
How tall of a fence?
I think the standard fence is 6 feet, and that was what I was bid to do.
That's correct.
Now, you got white pins around it now, right? Is that what it is?
No.
Okay.
No white fence, no.
Okay, all right.
The north side, I should add, is protected by ABC disposal, so I will not have to put any fencing.
So in Rodney's present situation, if he were to secure his property, he would have to run the fence around the 30-foot right-of-way that extends into this Reynolds First final plat. So if you look at the map, it would be all the way up this way and then across to between the two buildings and then back towards the south. That would be a requirement for him to stay out of the right-of-way with his fence. With the vacation of the right-of-way, he could run his fence directly across the end of the vacated right-of-way and make it a gate. There are ramifications with the gate which would be addressed at the time of permitting that.
Okay. But now you'd have to get sewer rights and everything through that.
That is correct, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
you'll have to get easement because the easement goes right through that 30-foot.
That basically he would have to give that up
Okay,
and get
now
it recorded.
Will that close that whole road off then?
It is closed off now.
It is closed off now.
Yeah, it's a dead end.
Okay, all right, okay.
And how do the public works folks now, Patrick, let us know, how do they do that?
Sure. Right now, if you look very closely, the last 30 feet of that right-of-way is actually paved all the way across the 60 feet. And so the vehicles can actually turn around on there without going on private property.
Is it good enough for like a fire truck or something like that?
It's a little bit tight for a fire truck, but it would be no different than it is right now.
Okay.
If the contingency is to create a turnaround that's the same dimensions as that which exists now. So that's item 1 for the contingencies.
Okay.
May I add something?
Sure.
Okay, and then to the
Well,
south.
you have to ask him. Sorry.
To the south entrance there is 2 driveways that go into adjoining apartments there. That is only, I would say, 50 to 60 feet away from where it begins to go into my property. Yeah, so if you needed, a bigger area to turn around or whatever, it wouldn't be that difficult to back down to those driveways.
Questions by other board members?
How many feet is it? I mean, the lengthwise, so you're closing the whole street, right?
Right, we would be intending to draw a line of vacation 30 feet from the northernmost end of this property. So that right now is the end of the right-of-way. The new end of the right-of-way would be right here.
Okay.
And that 30 feet would become private property.
Okay, all right, okay, that clarifies.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to consider the resolution with the contingencies to put this before the board for a vote, make a recommendation. Is there, how many contingencies are there? Is there just one? Or is
I
there-
actually have 4 contingencies if you would like them read into the record. And you can pick all or none, okay?
That should be part of the motion, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the first contingency would be that a turnaround shall be provided at the end of Brandon Avenue right-of-way as approved by the city engineer. The second one is that a utility easement shall be recorded for access to the existing sewer and water lines. The third contingency, that the petitioner shall agree to pay for a plat of survey and to prepare and record said survey at Lynn County. And the fourth one is that plans must be reviewed and permits issued before any construction of a fence.
Okay, has he agreed to these?
Yes, he understands that if it gets vacated, it will contain those contingencies if he's still interested, yes.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure he knows what he's got there too. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. I would second that motion.
All right, Terry Trimpe,
Aye.
Mark Ross,
Aye.
Lisa Jepson,
Aye.
Mark Powers,
Aye.
Kenny Jones.
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I so move.
We have a motion?
I have one other thing I'd like to say here. We're gonna have to do something to make the modulation better on the local transmissions, because I can hear about half of what, has been said tonight, and voting on things like this without understanding the implications of what the hell we're voting on is not a really good way to do business. I know it's not my equipment that's the problem, because when the attorney spoke, I understand every single word that he said, but all of the rest of the people that are involved here, it's really difficult.
I said the same thing for when the people talked. When I was on my phone, I cannot hear anything that they're saying. I know somebody's talking, but that's it.
I think we got a fix here, guys. This is kind of my line of work. We can get remote mics to put on this. There's remote mics that have like a 25-foot wired connection. That might help if we put one out there.
Sure.
Put this one in here and put another remote mic there. That would help. So there's at least 2 ports on the bottom of this, so we can get remote mics.
Well, thank you.
Our supplier should be able to do that fairly easily. It shouldn't be that costly. That will help.
Great.
Thank you.
But just like when the audience are speaking, but the microphone, I don't hear nothing. I don't hear a thing.
I would agree, especially if they have a face mask on. That was very hard. I don't know about, maybe you folks can hear better than I
No,
can. But
it was hard.
That was very hard.
Okay,
But as
call-
far as the microphone is concerned out there, I don't hear nothing coming over the PA.
Call for the question? Motion to adjourn?
I need a second.
I'll second it. Whoever.
Kenny?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay.
I had somebody at work, we're getting rid of these. We don't have these, this